All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bonnie Abramson. I am the education coordinator for the United Square Dancers of America. And we are the hosts of these webinars, and we thank you very much for your participation today. Today's speaker and I go way back. I've known Eric for many, many years. He started calling as a young man, and to this day is a fantastic caller of all levels. He always brings joy and cheer everywhere he goes. I mean, it's always brings a smile to my face whenever I see him. And it's a pleasure to have Eric doing this presentation. Eric was actually the keynote speaker at the CALLERLAB Convention this last year up in Reno. And that's where I had a chance to hear this program. And I felt like it was something that the rest of us wanted to hear. So it is my pleasure. Eric is a member of the CALLERLAB Board of Governors. And as I said, a longtime active caller from the San Francisco Bay Area, which you can graciously see in the back. What a lovely view you've got there. So enough from me. Again, if you're coming in late, if you have questions throughout the program, please put them in the chat and we'll make sure that Eric hears them at some point. And also, if you are interested in being directly notified about future USDA webinars, put your name and your email address in the chat. We will make sure that you get an email notification as well as how we distribute them on the USDA website and through Facebook. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Eric Henerlau.
Wow, okay. Thank you, Bonnie. Quite an introduction, Bonnie. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Before I start, though, I want to just say thank you to Bonnie and to the USDA for having me here today to do this presentation. As Bonnie mentioned, this is a presentation I did at CALLERLAB. I was honored and privileged to give the keynote address at the CALLERLAB Convention this year in Reno, Nevada. And the prompt that I was given was to talk about how we can restart square dancing in a lot of ways. And so I kind of thought about that for a long time, and I thought about what that meant, because as Bonnie said, we were there. A lot of groups are coming back dancing now, and some are struggling, some have done it successfully, some have folded all together. As we know, we've lost a lot of groups in the last few years. And so what I looked at is what happened and what is possible now that the pandemic, shall we say, is mostly over. It's manageable at this point. What we're doing, we're managing it. And so how does square dancing look in that environment? How does it look in that context? So my first thought was thinking about the phoenix bird, how the phoenix bird in Greek mythology rises out of the ashes to create something new. And that's kind of my pretext for this presentation. So I'm going to turn on my slides now, and I have to share screen, right? There we go. So does it work? Do you all see the screen? Okay, great. So I titled this presentation, Rising from the Ashes, Square Dancing 2023. So in Greek mythology, the phoenix bird symbolizes immortality, resurrection, and life after death. Does that sound familiar right now? The bird lives for a long time and is consumed by fire where it turns to ashes. From these ashes, a new phoenix bird arises. And I say square dancing is not unlike the phoenix bird. Truly, we are rising from the ashes of the past 3 years. And to fully grasp the situation we're in now, we've got to reflect on what has happened, seeing not only the downside, but the possibilities, and then use that knowledge to create a new beginning. It's all about thinking ahead. For many parts of the country, what we were doing prior to COVID was based on the traditional model of teaching and calling. Clearly, it wasn't working well. Clubs were dwindling or folding, festivals were being canceled, and the entire square dance population was shrinking. Yet we were so entrenched in how we thought things should be done, we were unable to do things differently. The recent pandemic could have been a death knell for square dancing. Everything that increases the risk of catching COVID was present in square dancing: close physical contact, touching hands, several people in a small room, shared food. Square dancing became the poster child for the virus spreading. Initially, dancing stopped temporarily for everyone. Some people resumed dancing when they could, but many left the activity permanently, never to return. Were any of you concerned that the pandemic could have been the end of square dancing? I was at one point. How many callers were tired or quit because they said, I'm done. It's just over for me. So think back in history. In the 1940s and World War II destroyed much of Europe. We know that Germany got bombed like crazy. And this is just a sample picture here. Buildings, institutions, and ways of life were demolished. The economy was in ruins and people were in misery. Europe was at a crossroads. A few years after the war, the Secretary of State, George Marshall, gave a speech about the condition of Europe and its dire needs. He outlined a plan to aid Europe in rebuilding its infrastructure. When President Truman signed it into law, it was titled the European Recovery Program. But does anybody really know what everybody called it? You know, they really called it the Marshall Plan. So the Allies and Western democracies contributed money, skills, and knowledge to the rebuilding and of the infrastructure and industries that were destroyed. New buildings, new ideas, new technology was born. The world was changed. Do you see how the world is changing today? Are we keeping up, or are we still hoping for the good old days that they'll come back sometime? Or are we going to die with blinders on, trying to preserve what is no longer there? If we look backwards and lament about the way it was, we're not productive. We keep locked in a hopeless state of mind that the best is behind us and the future holds little promise. I say there is a promise, a hope, and a real possibility of some great things happening. To illustrate my point, let's consider the automotive industry. Okay, in Detroit, car designers build what's called a concept car. A concept car is an idea of a possibility for the car of the future, and it may include radical designs and features that are completely different from what the current industry uses. Take a look at this picture. You ever seen a car like that? I haven't. Not everything from the concept car is used in the actual production of cars, but some of the best features are taken and incorporated into a new design. Through this process, cars evolve and change with the market's needs. Square dancing has its own version of concept cars. Here is a concept story. Many years ago, Jerry Story promoted the idea of ABC dances, where people could learn to attend a dance with no prior experience and learn a set of calls he called the A set. The next week, people could attend and he would teach a different set of calls called the B set. The third week, the same thing with a group of calls he called a C set. Each of these dances required no previous experience. Anyone could attend at any time to any of these dances. If one attended all three of the dances, A, B, and C, that person could then attend an ABC dance, which would have all those calls. This wasn't a beginner class or a new program to feed into clubs that existed. This was a way to bring people into square dancing without making a large commitment of time. It was really geared for the casual dancer who wanted to try some square dancing and enjoy a little square dancing, but not have to commit to a long series of lessons. Recently, many of us have been experimenting with a social square dance program. This, too, is a reinvention of square dancing from the way we used to know it. Its basic premise is that there is a shorter time frame for learning the most commonly used calls in square dancing. According to the program, a caller can teach much of the mainstream program in just 12 weeks from just the most common positions. The result is that the new dancer can dance what feels like mainstream, as it's done in many clubs. But what if we thought radically outside the box? What if we created a new way of sharing the fun of square dancing with a public that wasn't bound by the traditions and rules of our past? What if we explored ways of delivering our product that looks completely different than what we're currently doing? What if we created our concept car of square dancing? What if we created and delivered our product to people through different venues and different channels? What if our programs look more like party nights or one-night stands instead of classes and lessons? What if we removed some of our mores about dress codes and alcohol and delivered our product in a wider variety of venues such as nightclubs and bars? What if we had a tighter integration with related forms of dancing beyond round dancing, such as line dancing or Zumba? Maybe this is the concept car for square dancing, ideas that make us think more broadly about what is possible. So, where do we go from here? It's time for our Marshall Plan. Well, actually, it's time for your Marshall Plan, okay? What will you do to rebuild the square dance activity in this post-COVID world? What changes will you make to your calling, to your teaching, to your leadership, to your clubs, to your dancers to accelerate this recovery? John F. Kennedy famously said, quote, in Chinese language, the word crisis is composed of two characters, one representing danger and the other representing opportunity. While this is not exactly an accurate translation of the Chinese word, the phrase has endured through the years and gives us a way of looking at the situation. Danger, opportunity, crisis, opportunity. Certainly, COVID was a crisis. It was also a great opportunity, an opportunity to reinvent who we are and what we are doing, an opportunity to deliver a product that appeals to a mass market who is desperate to make social connections after 3 years of isolation, an opportunity to create something new, a new paradigm, an opportunity to have a frank discussion with other dance leaders about what is working and what could be changed. So how do we do this? First, we deliver what the world wants. Be willing to let go of the ideas that continue only by inertia. Read the floor. What is it that you do that puts a smile on dancers' faces? What's the best part of your personality that you can give to dancers? Now, when I was giving this lecture, when I was giving this keynote address that was addressing callers, the same thing is true for all dancers out there, dance leaders, existing people in the activity. What is it that people are doing to put a smile on other people's faces? What's the best part of your personality you can give to the dancers? Are you more concerned with having them dance correctly or having them have fun? The product we deliver really isn't square dancing. It's enjoyable recreation, or simply put, fun. If we give the dancers fun, they will keep coming back. Second, be flexible. Start beginner classes any time of the year and offer them frequently. I cannot underscore this enough. Offer them frequently. Give the public as many starting points as possible. For the callers, be flexible in your teaching. Set a schedule for lessons and then continually adjust it based on who shows up. Be willing to abandon a planned program in order to entertain dancers. It's not important that you keep on a schedule to get through a set number of calls. It's important that you entertain the dancers and make sure they have fun and keep coming back. Beginners don't get bored, but they do get frustrated when they get overloaded with new calls. Back down to teaching if necessary, just to keep the dancers smiling. Third, worry less about the technicalities of calling and concentrate on entertaining. Again, this is addressed to callers. The most popular callers in the greater square dance community are good entertainers, not just creative choreographers. Find the right balance in their style. Everyone can be a good entertainer and a good choreographer. And I'll say the same thing for the dance leader community. Don't worry about pushing your new dancers up the levels to learn more calls. Talk about having fun with them. What is the social aspect you can have fun with them, not just learn another call. Fourth, change the structure of caller-dancer relations. Now, this is where I was really addressing the callers on this thing. Take more leadership in the survival and growth of this activity. A lot of callers really just wait to see what the club is going to do and do whatever the club asks them to do. If the club doesn't ask them to do anything, they don't do anything. So they just simply sit aside. And I really am pushing the callers to take a leadership role in the clubs, especially those that don't have strong leadership, because the caller is going to suffer as well as the club. And it's not good enough for the caller to sit by and let the club fail. The caller must step in and help. So do this by attending and contributing to club leadership meetings, giving the dancers direction and advice where needed. Again, if you don't have a strong club, the caller can come in there and in the right way, give leadership skills. De-emphasize bureaucracy and administration and emphasize a leaner club structure with fewer duties. I think as Dennis brought up earlier, a lot of people don't want to spend time doing a lot of office holding things that are busy board functions. They want to dance and they want to do the least amount that they can do to get dancing and having fun. So we don't want to make a big bureaucracy around it. Fifth, participate financially in the success of every class. And so again, I'm addressing to the callers. Every class, every workshop, every dance, and every festival. Consider making a business investment partnership in the clubs. So if the callers were investing in the clubs with their money, not just their time and talent, but their money too, they've got a stake in the outcome. I suggested to the callers they structure the success of each dance that when the club does better and the classes do better, that the caller does better as well. So when the caller has skin in the game, he makes a difference. He or she makes a difference. If the callers, for instance, pays a flat fee to show up and teach a class, great. But if the caller is paid on a sliding scale, but depending on how many people are attending the class, well, that caller is more motivated to keep more people on the floor and do whatever it takes to do that. 6, update dance fees and costs. Halls are more expensive and travel costs for callers are higher. That is a just known fact. We know that. Inflation has come. Inflation the last 2 or 3 years has gone up quite a bit. We know that. But even before that, we were still stuck in a mindset from a long time ago. Increase dance fees to reflect today's economies. Personally, I can't see attending any dance or workshop for less than $10 a person. I'm always surprised when I go out to travel in some areas and they charge $3 or $4 or $5 per person to attend a dance. In our area, if you go to a movie, it's $12.50 or $13 just to go to a movie. So why is square dancing so low priced, given the fact that we have to pay for halls and we have to pay for callers and we have to pay for advertising and all the things that go around it? In some areas, $15 a person is the norm. In our area, the Bay Area, that's the norm. Seventh, use every open dance or special or hoedown, festival, or major club dance as an opportunity to showcase square dancing. We keep square dancing a secret, and I have no idea why. When a square dance happens, in most places, it happens in a community hall, a church, a school, some facility, and people go in and they disappear behind the door and they square dance, and no one outside knows that's happening. And yet, so we don't tell people about it, that there's this great event happening. Now, there may be exceptions. I'm not saying there aren't exceptions, but by and large, nobody knows. I made myself an A-frame sign, one of those real estate signs, we call it a sandwich board that you see down the curb that says open house for them. I made myself one of those that says square dancing here with an arrow pointing there. I keep that on my trunk, and every single dance that I do, I put that sign out on the street so people know there's square dancing going on here. It raises awareness right there. Eighth, stay educated on social trends in your area. Be aware of local and regional events where square dancing can be incorporated. Find ways to keep square dancing in the public's eyes. As I said, we are a big secret and people don't know we exist. So the more we get out there in public to show people that we exist as square dancing and we're having fun, the more awareness there is for the activity and the more people might be interested in finding out more about it. Ninth, leverage technology. Keep your Facebook page and your websites up to date. Use regional group email lists to push out square dance information to subscribers. Keep your database of club members and new dancers current. You've got to keep that stuff current. It's imperative that when you go to a website for a club, that you actually have current information, or to a Facebook page. So many clubs have out-to-date information. Now, a lot of clubs don't have the expertise to do that. That's fine. Outsource that to someone. Find someone who can actually take the time to just do a quick update on their website so that make sure you have current calendar information, current class information, current workshop information, whatever it might be. Because people do look on the web. They do try to dig up, hey, I'm visiting this city in this state. Are there any square dance clubs? And they look it up and they find out it was updated 3 years ago. And that person who was a contact person no longer dances. Well, this information needs to be updated so people can. 10th, get to know your regular dancers and club members. If you're not naturally a social person, learn the skills you need to make connections with people. The more dancers that feel a bond with you, the more likely they will return to dance. Now, I directed that at callers, but I'm going to direct that as well to all the existing dancers. You need to get to know all the people that walk in the door. That connection you make with those people, the smile you give them, getting to know their name, finding out a little bit about them, is the bond that keeps them wanting to come back every week. They come back for the dancing, but they come back for the people too. If they don't like the people there, they are not going to come back. So the most primary thing, and Jim Mayo talks about this a lot, the late Jim Mayo, the great Jim Mayo, talked about this a lot, that it's the social concept, the social bonds that really are important in square dancing to keep those coming back. Yes, you are going to learn square dance calls, you're going to have fun doing square dancing, but you're really there to laugh and have a good time with your friends. As I said in the beginning, all we're doing is selling fun. That's it, nothing else, just fun. So finally, we as callers, and I'll say to the dancers as well, we need to build the next generation of callers. We need to train our replacements. It's no secret we're not getting any younger, and we know we're losing some of our great callers. So we need new people coming in that are younger, that can step into the shoes and start to be trained. We see a lot of caller schools out there that train callers. We need to encourage that more, but not only encourage them to go through school, but encourage them so they can start classes or call for clubs, whatever it takes to give them the skills they need so that they can go out and create organically new groups. That's very, very important. We see very little of that happening these days, but it's important, really, really important to help new callers create new groups organically. What we do have is experience and knowledge and skills. And these are the things that we can, as callers, give as mentors to transfer to our proteges. And I'll say that too, as well as to the dancers, that you can take the experience you have in the activity. A lot of you have a lot of experience, and share that with a new potential caller. What works for you? What do you like? What do you like about that person? Give that person encouragement and mentor that person through not just the calling skills, which you may or may not have, but just what it takes to kind of be the right kind of person to stand on stage to entertain people. We know there are different kinds of personalities on stage. We know what works and what doesn't work. So you can help people with that. Callers can be the best caller and teacher in the world, but there's only one of that person. So the only way for us to leverage ourselves is to mentor someone else in the club to try their hand at calling. And of course, we can always take credit to become famous, right? So remember that more callers equals more square dance teachers, equals more classes, equals more dances, equals more square dances. And there's a famous phrase that says, a rising tide lifts all ships. So as more dancers coming in, everybody benefits. It all comes up. In America, there are 300 million people who don't square dance yet. I think it's a great opportunity. So the Phoenix bird is rising from the ashes. Let's make it better than ever. There it is. There's my presentation. Thank you. If you have questions, I will entertain them now.
And I will say, if you do have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself. Anne from Cape Cod, when we were talking about COVID, you mentioned that it is still a very big issue up in your area. Are your clubs getting out and actively dancing, or are they, what parameters are they taking?
Yeah, we did real well during COVID. We danced out in the parking lot. Sometimes we had just video Zoom visits with each other because we had no idea how long it would stretch. But our state regulations forbid dancing. It was the very last thing that we were allowed to do when they lifted the restrictions. So we've been trying to build back. The official club that we were part of had pretty much folded. They said, if you want to pick up, somebody wants to pick it up and go forward. I don't know that much about it, but I said I would. So we were already very small, and we had a big setback. But just this past week, we had someone that we danced with let us know that she had been exposed to COVID, and we were not dancing with masks the way we had been during, post the restrictions. We came back to dancing with masks on, and used all of those precautions, and we were fine. Nobody got sick up until until today. So I was just wondering how people are dealing with that. And I just started a new class at a senior center. Luckily, that person didn't spend, she came in and gave some papers and left. But if that person had spent time in there, I would have had to call all of those brand new people and say, I'm sorry, you're going to need to test yourself because this could be something that's coming to you. I don't know how to handle that. The other things that you said, I wish my caller was on here. We're on Cape Cod. We have just us for mainstream, and we have one guy who calls more advanced stuff. That's it for all of Cape Cod. My caller is a wonderful guy, but he doesn't have, he's as old as I am. He doesn't have someone he's bringing up, to mentor. So I feel, somebody said this is like being Prometheus, who had to push the boulder up the hill. You get it just so far, and then it falls down. So, I'm real new at this. I love all your ideas, but I don't think you can say COVID in the past tense everywhere. Maybe it's true there, but
COVID's not over. COVID's not over. The pandemic is over. It's now a manageable epidemic at this point.
Yeah. How do you manage it? Is there anyone here who's from a club? I mean, not a caller, but a regular dancer. Okay, another time.
Many of us are dancers, dance leaders, and that was why I know that Eric had developed his presentation geared at callers, but as someone who attended that convention, it really spoke to us because we all need to support each other. We need to work together as a team. And I know one of the webinars I was asked to try to put together was on how do we as dance leaders support these callers that want, these people that want to learn how to be a caller. And everybody, you know, they have the attitude, well, they want everybody to come out of the womb being, you know, an Eric Henerlau, a Jerry Story, a Tony Oxidine. That's not going to happen. We have to support the people that are getting out and trying to learn, and that they're being the club callers, you know, and hopefully, you know, through time they will develop into those great callers, but everybody starts somewhere, and we need to support that. And how do we do that and maintain the dancers, you know, who maybe don't have the patience to, you know, wait for someone to develop, you know, but how do we get in and support them? So that is a program that I'm going to be looking to fill. And I was just at a festival last weekend where Eric was one of the featured callers, and there were several dancers there that were still dancing in masks. So it really just goes to what your comfort level is, what your personal vulnerability is. And you have to make people not feel bad because they're wearing a mask. You know, that
Bonnie, this is Dennis. I don't know what the COVID was up in different areas, but I know that here in Arizona, I don't know of any square dancer that got COVID because they went to a square dance. They were putting out hand sanitizers and all that sort of thing. But I do know people who got COVID going to the grocery store. You know, in fact, there was one person that told me they went to a square dance, and they went afterwards in a couple of days or 3 days and played dominoes at one of the people's houses. And I think about a week later, they had 2 people come down with COVID, but the others didn't have COVID. So where did they get it? It didn't get it at a square dance because there's too much time frame involved. So I don't know if anybody that's got it from square dancing per se, but
Well, if I have it, you can count me as your first case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
it did happen
masking
in
in
different
the
places.
house
Yeah.
with my
yeah,
husband.
I don't know
and
about your
I have
area,
the test.
but I do
But
know
yeah.
when I was on my tour this past summer, I was exposed to COVID with a couple I stayed with. Their daughter had COVID and tested positive, and that was over the 4th of July. And I told my wife, I said, we're leaving tomorrow morning. And she said, well, where are we going? I said, we're going home. And what happened was I had one dance left to call the tour in Montrose, Colorado. And I had to call them and let them know that I was exposed to COVID, and I felt better by canceling it. And I saw those dancers when I went to their beach promenade in August, and they thanked me for doing that. But they said it was so good to see me again. And I said, I never got COVID. I felt fine, but I said, I would feel really bad if somebody came down with COVID because I needed to call that dance. So I had to cancel that.
Well, and a lot of it is about respect, and many clubs at the peak of things when they were first coming back, they set up like a notification chain, whether it was via email or whatever, to try to, you know, if they found out that somebody was exposed or came down with COVID, they notified everybody they were around so that, you know, they could take precautions. But it's still, it just happened. We do have something on the chat. Eric, can you please talk about some of the things you are doing at your club in terms of starting new classes and party nights?
Well, yes, I'd love to talk about that. Thank you, Rich. Yeah. So as you know, as many of you know, I call for the TAM Twirlers here in San Rafael. And the TAM Twirlers is an exceptional group of people, really exceptional. They are smart people, not just smart people, but smart in how they view square dancing. And so what we decided to do when we resumed dancing after COVID was to become an SSD club. We're no longer a plus club, no longer a mainstream club, an SSD club. And so we run continuous beginner classes. Let me back up a few minutes before we get to there. What happened was a year and a half ago or so, a woman called me and asked about square dancing. It was in May. She said, hey, I found out about your club. I'd like to start square dancing. And I said, that's great. We'll have a class starting in September. And then I got off the phone with her, and I felt horrible. I felt horrible for telling this person who wanted to start square dancing right now in May to come back in September. It's just like, you know, I think by the time September comes, she's off doing something else, not square dancing. You know, it just felt horrible. So I had this idea, which I proposed to the club, to say, why don't we have an introduction night, an open house on the first Wednesday of every month for 30 minutes. Now, to give a little background to everybody else, our club dances once a week on Wednesdays. So we dance every Wednesday night. So we have a class going on Wednesday night. So I thought, why don't we just have the first 30 minutes be an intro night on the first Wednesday of every month, such that if anybody wanted to try square dancing, they could do that. And then, of course, after 30 minutes, we'd continue on with the class as normal. And they could just sit and watch. And if nobody showed up, that's fine. We just have a class anyway during that time slot. Nothing lost, right? So I proposed that. And then the first month, one person came. Next month, 2 people came. And next month after that, 5 different people came. Next month, 3 people came. And then 8 people came. And we've been doing that every month ever since now for a year and a half. And from that, we collect, of course, names and email addresses and phone numbers, right? And so when we start a class, we contact them and say, hey, we're starting a class. And most of them had a good time during that open session, right? So a handful will start the class. And we did that. And we started a class a year plus ago, whatever it was, and continued doing the open houses every Wednesday night, every first Wednesday, once a month. And after 12 weeks, we started another class. And after 12 weeks, we started another class. And we do 4 classes a year now. And we've been snowballing. And last week we danced 5 squares, which for our area is a really good sized group. You're coming up from 2 squares. So now
Eric, do you charge those new people that come in for that 30 minutes?
So for the 30-minute intro, we don't charge, no. But if they sign up for the class, of course, there's a fee for the class. But no, for the 30 minutes, it's free. Come in and we coordinate, we tie it in with our party night. So the existing dancers bring in refreshments and we have a theme every month. So it's a nice theme, whatever it is for what, it's just some, snacks like a lot of clubs do. And so it's worked really well. People come in, again, I'm going to reemphasize, beginners do not get bored. They don't care learning the calls over again. They're totally happy with that. And so for those who want to continue on, we actually split the session. So at 8 o'clock, in the second part of the evening, we do some higher level SSD calls for them, as we would say, finish out more SSD. But by and large, most of them are just happy as can be to dance the beginners every time. Nobody gets bored. Everybody has a great time and it keeps snowballing. We have a large group of dancers dancing. So that's working for us. Our website tells you that. So if you just, all we do is have a business card that says, hey, TAM Tours, and they go to the website, boom, hey, every month I can come and join them for square dancing. And people come and they come back the next month and they say, hey, I like this. I want to start a class. That really works. So that's our success story. And I want to keep spreading that around to everybody I can.
No, I think that's great. Any other questions for Eric?
I'm going to add one more thing in there. One thing we did was we created banners, big vinyl banners, that said they're about 6 feet by 2.5 feet. And they say, TAM Twirlers, our big logo, and it says square dance for fun, ! Phone number, website. That's it. And we got a half a dozen of them. We put them in different places around the county. Wherever we saw other signs being hung on fences, we hung our sign there too. Not, let's say it's gray marketing. We're not really sure if we're allowed to do it, but other signs were there too. So we did what we could. And we got so many phone calls based on that. People go to the website, they call, hey, how do I find out about it? How do I get there? People just walked in the door. So yes, word of mouth is always the best way of getting people into square dancing. But beyond that, this is an excellent way. And people are coming in because they're organically seeing this. We have the ads out there. They save the website. They know they can walk in any month to dance. And it's working.
You mentioned ads, Eric. Do you do any radio or print ads per se? Like
we don't.
Newspaper?
We don't. We have not at this point. Those are expensive ventures, and they're very tricky to figure out exactly how to create the ads and be meaningful, how much it costs to do them, and also how many times you have to repeat it and what demographic market you want to send it out to. Different radio stations have different demographics. So we have not done that. The banners is a very low cost, very, very low cost form of advertising, as are the business cards too. The next approach we're probably going to take is looking at digital advertising, where we can put this on Facebook, Instagram, other feeds that would be appropriate to say, hey, the square dancing is available in your area, something like that.
Okay. Anything else for Eric? Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Eric, how many hours on a Wednesday? Do you have like 3 hours?
So for the new dancers, we do them for about 2 hours. And then the remainder of the evening, we'll do some mainstream and some plus tips for the existing, plus dancers that are there. But really the focus is, and everybody knows the focus is on the beginner. It's just continuous beginner classes.
Okay, thank you. So basically you have more than a 2-hour time slot in your facility.
We have a 2.5-hour time slot.
I have another question. Are you encouraging your new dancers to go out and visit other clubs, and and festivals? And if so, are you having much success with that?
Yes, we are encouraging them, with the caveat that the minimum level of calls they need to know is SSD, because most of the festivals have an SSD floor. And so I actually had a communication with the dance. I sent out email communications every week in midweek between classes to all the students and all the club members, giving some thoughts, what are my thoughts are for the week, and it's about square dancing. And in this last one, I actually did talk about all the festivals and how they work and what the programs are, and that they need to learn SSD to go to these festivals. So I've talked to them that the goal is for us to get to SSD, when it's appropriate, when you're ready. And when you get to SSD, this whole world is open out there for them to get to.
Okay.
But I don't send them out early. I won't send them out unless they're ready. I won't say go to this thing if they haven't learned all the calls. It doesn't make sense.
Very good. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Okay.
I'm new to Alberta, Canada, moved from Ontario, from New York, and been calling for nearly 60 years. And so I've seen a lot of death and rebirth in the activity. I just did a first night last Saturday night. We had 29, where I'm at Cochrane, we have 40,000 people, and we're about 45 minutes from Calgary, which is maybe 1.5 million people. They have about 4 clubs down there, and I've been filling in for different callers, being the new kid on the block. Anyhow, I did my first dance here in Cochrane, and I let the people in the clubs know in Calgary that I was doing this. Just casually, didn't really mention much about it. Last Saturday night, we had 29 people and 3 squares of dancers from Calgary showed up. Now, to me, that was more impressive than the total number of dancers that showed up. Was the sharing of this whole activity. They want to see it happen. They want to see things, go well. I did put advertising on Facebook. I put it through the seniors groups. And what happens is, being people, we're a little shy sometimes to say we might be interested in that hokey thing called square dancing. Okay. On Facebook, I got a lot of responses saying, sorry, I couldn't make it. It was our Thanksgiving weekend up here. And sorry we couldn't make it, but we love the idea. And what happens is other people see that who might be reticent to say anything about it because they don't want to be labeled a potential hokey person. But they see other people doing it and they go like, oh yeah. And they'll click on it and say, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So we've got to start going. And my thing to callers, of course, is, especially for new callers, all you need is 2 couples to start with. Get started, and it'll happen. We say build it and they will come. Well, no, you build it, you talk about it. The sandwich board idea is a great thing, Eric. I've got one of them. We've got to let people know what's going on inside that building. If they know about it, more people will talk about it, and they're just going to come out. So I'm all for the advertising. Get on all the Facebook things, meet up, things you can. There's so many of them out there, and all you have to do is put a little blurb out and say, watch for square dancing coming. Give them well, of course, on Facebook, they got a contact. They can message you through that. But
I want to add on something that Joe
live.
just said. Yeah, Joe, you mentioned something important there. You said something about the hokey thing, square dancing. And so one of the things I've noticed over the years, we've often defined square dancing as what it's not. This is not your grandpa's square dance. It's not what they did in the old days. This is this thing. We do this now. We use modern. We always define in terms of what it's not. And what I've learned is that that's not an effective way of actually just promoting square dancing. The effective way to promote square dancing is tell it what it is. Tell square dancing what it is. Ignore anybody else's perceptions of what it's not. If you've ever watched a debate, presidential debate, or any other debate on stage on the television, and the person, the debater, the facilitator asks a question, the person responding frames the question the way they want to frame it. They don't answer the question. They say, here's what I'm going to talk about. That's what they really say in a debate. And so when someone says, oh, square dancing, my grandparents do, here's what square dancing is. I do this, this, and this, and this is why it's fun. Don't put it in context of it's not what your grandparents did or something like that. Don't talk about that. Talk about what it is for you. What is it that makes square dancing exciting for you? Just focus on that. Ignore any comparisons to negativity or to the past. Just ignore those. Focus on what's great. And when we do that, people will start to catch on. Hey, this actually sounds interesting, And if I'm interested, I'll try it. So that's a comment I want to make to everybody out there and the whole world. Just keep focusing on what it is. Ignore responding to what people think it is. But the second question, Joe, you said you put ads in Facebook. Tell us a little bit about that. Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, where I'm at, it's a community that has a Facebook page. And of course, when I first moved here, I joined it right away to find out what's going on. Then I found out that every little community around here has a Facebook page. So I've been joining them.
Okay.
And I just put on, actually, the webmaster for the Calgary Dance Association made a flyer for me, put it on the Square Dance Association's webpage. So I just copied it and I posted it on there because it said everything it needed to. Singles and couples welcome. The first night was free. There was going to be treats and water, whatever. So it told exactly what it was. For a good time, for fun, come on out and all that. And so I put it on as many Facebook spots as I could. I go on to the virtual Facebook page that has groups, newbie callers, square dance callers, challenge callers, several square dance club groups are on there. I advertise on all of those as well. And, it also, of course, I'm doing Zoom sessions. And so, the newer people kind of like the idea of, I could do that on Zoom? You mean I could do that when I'm home and I can't come to a dance? I can just tune in? Yeah, you can. Just sign into my Zoom thing. It's broadcast and you can see what we're doing that night that you missed.
Okay, so you do all you post on Facebook accounts. You're not doing any paid advertising, is that correct?
No, but here in Alberta, it's a fantastic situation. You work for a day at a casino and you get thousands of dollars for your clubs. So the association, the Calgary Association, each club gets $900 for digital advertising. And they rent these big signs, that they have on the roadside, and they're all over the place. Because with that $900, you can do a lot of advertising.
Sure.
So digital wise, and again, it's us callers getting out there and making it known that this is happening. This is what we do. I go to all the fraternal, maternal, whatever groups there are and say, look, I call square dancing and I'd be glad to do, one tip, a half an hour, a whole night, you name it. Give me a date. And if I'm available, I'll call. And I don't have to charge for those things because that's part of my marketing plan.
Great.
That's great. Eric, we had another question come up on the chat. how do you get enough revenue to offer a longer dance session every week? And our caller is trying to do 3 levels at once and is exhausted.
It's not easy. I'll tell you that it's not easy. Yeah. So dance revenue. Okay. So people pay to dance, right? You know, except for the intro, the 30-minute intro, everybody else pays to dance, right? They pay their dance fees every week, or they pay monthly dues, whatever their, or class fees, whatever it might be. So the dancers are paying that to attend the dance. So we get that in there. And we have enough, like I say, we hit 5 squares last week, which actually is really nice. That's really good for our group in our area. That's a lot. So, you know, we would dance typically 3 or 4 squares every week, but to hit 5 was good. So my next goal is 7. We're going to get to 7 squares. And then after that, 10. We'll let you know when we get there.
Yeah.
We're moving up that ladder. But you know, doing 3 levels is exhausting. It takes a while. It takes planning on the caller's part to do that. But honestly, for a caller, it's a business. It really is. Like any job, you have to work at your job and prepare yourself. You just don't waltz in there and just think you can just wing it off the top of your head. You have to know what you're doing and prepare yourself for that, because that's where you're getting paid. You're getting paid to do your job.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things you mentioned earlier, Eric, is that every week you personally put out a message to all your dancers, all the newbies, all the whatever. And I think so often it's dependent upon the club members to do that. And I think having that caller take that initiative to be involved and support the club, that's another piece of us working together. So maybe that's something the rest of us can look at is, you know, how can we get our caller more interactive? They're not just the hired help, they're really part of the group. And I know some people have taken that attitude, well, you know, we hired them to do a job. Well, yes, but we need to incorporate them as part of the club, and not everybody does that. And so I think that's part of the other thinking that the rest of us need to look at doing.
Absolutely. And on quite often, honestly, you know, if I can go back, you know, 40 years in this activity, you know, it was very much a separation. The caller was here, the club was here, and there were 2 different entities, and that was that. And fine. And that may have worked for a long time, but these days we really need to be integrated together, crossover together, like we are one entity, even though we still have that formal separation that the club is the club and the caller is a caller. But the caller really needs to be part of that whole leadership structure of the club to help the club survive and grow. Not just survive, but really grow, because you have to always be growing, always be growing. If you're not growing, you're shrinking, but you're never staying the same. There's no stasis in square dancing. So yes, they've got to be part of that whole process. One of the other things that we do is we encourage the dancers themselves to encourage the other dancers. Now, one way we do this is to have during a class time, have experienced dancers go up on stage and give a testimonial about square dancing. So we'll have somebody come up who maybe started square dancing 3 years ago, and now the beginner class is going on for 3 or 4 weeks. And that person will come up and say, my name is so-and-so, I started square dancing, blah, blah, blah. Here's how I got into square dancing. Here's what we do. We just love it, blah, blah, blah. And I do this, I do that. And by the way, I'm a general contractor, I'm a race car driver or whatever. And all these things. And now we love square dancing. We go to these festivals and we think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So, but we not coming from the caller's mouth, but coming from the dancer. So the more you can get dancers to come up and give a testimonial about what square dancing means to them, the more the other dancers are going to bond and connect with that feeling. And so you want to be able to pull that out of your existing dancers and say, hey, let's do a testimonial, so that, and then they get off and say, wow, Bob, that's really cool. You've been in 3 years. You really love this thing. I just started 3 weeks ago. Wow. Now I'm looking forward to a long-term relationship with this thing because I can see how much fun it is.
All right. Anything else from anyone? Comments, questions?
I just wanted to say I'm part of TAM Twirlers and I'm on the board, and I don't know if you can hear me okay. So I haven't been participating that much, but like we've really taken that idea of making that intro night into a party night. So like some people like really get into the party aspect of it, the food and all of that kind of stuff. And so it's so they're not really paying attention as much to I mean, they are doing the square dancing component, but they're really paying attention to meeting new people. And I think that that's really important right now. And I think that that's what people are, focusing on. which is great. So yeah, I made a whole like several months out different themes that people can play around with so that they have something fun to look forward to, but also so that like if they're inviting their friends, they can say, you know, it's this night, you know, whatever, that's what they're going to be doing. And so it's more like a party at this point. So, I mean, that goes back to some of the things that I had heard a long time ago that people did with square dancing things, because, you know, some people were more used to that, but a lot of our more experienced older dancers cycled out. So now these new people are sort of taking the lead with that, which is really fun to see. But yeah, I think that it's a lot about the connection that the people are making right now, more than anything else. So
Thank you, Deborah.
yeah.
Dennis wanted to say something?
Yes, I was going to ask Eric early on in his presentation. He mentioned about how the club went from plus down to SSD. I don't know that it would work here. I mean, because where do these guys go and dance? I mean, they want to dance at the club. They're members of the club. So now you're dancing all SSD. But also, I have seen in my areas of travel and also in this area where they're advertising SSD. They're teaching a class in an hour and a half, 2 hours. They want you to have them through the mainstream program completely by 20 weeks or less. And then they want you to immediately start a plus workshop. And so you just keep on doing what we've always been doing. And, and of course, the dancers or you tell the club members this, but, they're running the club, they're the officers, and they're in charge. So how do you get around that or approach that to make them understand the SSD is a standalone program and it's not a stepping stone just to go into the mainstream, teach all the programs right into plus like it used to be?
Well, you hit the nail right on the head there. So, the way they're treating it is SSD as a stepping stone. And I've seen that in certain clubs in the Bay Area here too. And I'm always shaking my head. Well, wait a second. SSD is an end to itself. It's truly social square dancing, period. There will always be those who want more, and that's fine. You can run a class to them somewhere else to learn mainstream plus and those things, advanced, wherever you want to go to. But for everybody else, social square dancing is where they want to be. And I'm happy with that. And there's plenty to do at social. There's plenty of material at social square dancing at that level to do. So this goes back into the issue of leadership, that the caller and the leadership and talking to the club leaders and saying, what is your real objective? Is your real objective to get them to plus? Do you have a program to get them to plus, the newer dancers? Is it working? If it's working, great. If it's not working, it's time to rethink things. The traditional model, generally speaking, with most clubs I talk to going through plus, they'd start out with 20 people and end up with 2 plus, and then drop out after a year. That's not working. That doesn't work for me. I mean, that doesn't work for anybody. If they want to continue and they think that's working, great. If they're not happy with that, they really need to rethink this. And this goes right back to my presentation, thinking outside the box. You really, really have to rethink everything, saying maybe A1 is not the destination. And I know you said plus, but it could just easily been A1. Maybe A2 is the destination.
Well, I think that the thing is that it can't just come from the caller either. I mean, our board is made up of advanced and challenged dancers, all of them. And so we just said, in order for the square dancing to survive in our area, we need to make a decision. And we all got on board with that. And it wasn't immediate. It's not like all of a sudden we had, 50 people show up or something, but all of us are higher level dancers. So we all have to seek out dancing somewhere else if we want to satisfy that. But I mean, like we had people who are C4 dancers come to our intro night the other night, and people were having all this fun, and they said, is this a dance or is this a regular night? So, I mean, like, I think that sort of getting that message out around your area, if the fun is happening there, it's not going to matter what the level is, that people are doing. And when we had our dance, that we put on, our big dance in June, our anniversary dance, we started out with like, what was it, 45 minutes or half an hour of we made an intro night at a regular hoedown dance. And so some of our brand new dancers who are dancing class level SSD were super excited that it was even easier than what they had been doing, and they felt warmed up when we got going for the dance. So I mean, there are ways that it really works to the advantage for the new dancers too. So
As we came back to square dancing, we came up with this saying that it's not important what we dance, it's important that we dance. And we try to get people to use that to kind of explain the situation. Let's just dance.
Right. Like I say, if what you got is working and you get, and dentists, if it's working, they get people through all those programs to that level and it works great, then don't change anything. Most places it's not working.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. You know,
they have to rethink things. You know, you keep shooting yourself in the foot. Eventually your foot's gonna be gone. And you realize maybe I should stop shooting myself in the foot, right?
Yeah, you look for another job. That's what I had to do. A square dance calling job for another club, basically.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like this has been a very good conversation. Any more comments or questions for Eric?
I want to add one final thought. You know, we keep emphasizing the fun part here, and really it's about the fun. And as Deborah said, it's a social fun thing. And yeah, there was square dancing. And you know me, I'm a caller, and I like to teach and call, and I have a fun time doing that. My job as a caller is to create fun. The club's job, especially the leadership in the club, is also to create fun. We're all creating fun. If your caller in your group is not particularly an outgoing person who likes to, have fun with the dancers and do a lot of things that really make people smile and laugh, maybe he's more reserved, he or she is more quiet about it and just knows calling skills, then the club leadership needs to take on some of that responsibility to create the fun environment that everybody enjoys and laughs and is happy to be there with each other. So it's not just the caller. The caller certainly has his or her part, but the club itself also has their part to make that fun environment. Everything to make that fun environment.
Karen.
I would like to say thank you very much to Eric, but also in my perspective, emails weekly to dancers is gold. It reminds them that they're going to have a day coming up. It puts square dancing on their mind. I think emails are gold, and people look at their emails. They choose to go to Facebook. Just my opinion there. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank Eric for his time and enthusiasm for all things square dancing. As I said, I've known him for a long time, and he definitely has that enthusiasm and spirit and fun aspect, and it really does make a difference. I do want to mention that our next two webinars have sort of been topics at various times today. Next month, our topic will be the USDA insurance program. Our National Insurance Director, Elizabeth Sanders, will be on hand to answer any of your questions as we get into the renewal season. And then Eric brought up websites and keeping those up to date. And we have a gentleman named Alan Hirsch, who happens to be now from my local club, but he is going to talk about websites and how to make them active and viable and keep them up to date, and really stress how important that is and answer some of your questions of what you can do to make your websites better. Coming into January, as I said, we have Mike Hogan, who was one of the authors of CALLERLAB's marketing program and marketing manual, and he is going to be joining us, and then we will continue to have more programs throughout the year. So if you want to be directly notified of upcoming webinars, you can put your name and your email address in the chat, and we will make sure that you get those email notifications. We also post them regularly on as many of the Facebook square dance groups as we can get to. And then we also have all the information available on the USDA website. This recording will be up on the website probably midweek, along with Eric's slides from today. So we Really encourage you to spread the word. And if you know people who should hear this, maybe share those links from the website and encourage them to go out and see the program. Any last minute thoughts or comments from anyone?
I got a question, Bonnie. How much notice do we get if we chat, if we send you the email address, how much notice do you give us what's coming up?
We try to give you a couple of weeks, but I know that we've got the dates and times. It's always 11 o'clock Pacific time that we start.
Okay.
So whatever, if I know some areas are on daylight savings, some are not.
Yeah.
All of that. But the website has the future dates coming up. We do always use the same link information, just makes it easier, makes it consistent. But we try to, as soon as I get a notification out to the USDA Executive Committee, Mylene will forward it out via email.
So the link for the next webinar will be the same link I used today?
Yes.
Okay.
Just for the different date and time. Like I say, that just makes life easier.
Okay. Yeah, it does. Yes.
All
I
right.
just want to know what I needed to post on the website. I'll do that as soon as we get off of here. I'll post that on the website for you.
Thank you so much.
And Dennis, have you always been from Arizona? Have you always square danced?
Well, I grew up in Arizona. My parents moved out here when I was about 8 years old, got involved in square dancing, and I took up calling and then learned how to dance. And I've been doing it since I was 10.
That's great.
66 years this year.
Wow.
Well, and I want to say it's nice to see some familiar faces participating today and several new faces. This is the way we spread the word, and like I say, we're always looking for topics that are going to be timely and meaningful to you in your area. So if you have any suggestions, either post them on the chat or you can email me at education@usda.org. So unless there's any last comments, I want to thank you all again, and especially thank Eric for his time and expertise.
Yes.
And just, really well done. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording, and then, you've got a couple of minutes if you still want to chat offline. But again, thank you all for your time today. We really appreciate it.